Welcome to the Recovery Cast, brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private.
Hello and welcome to the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Rangers Private. My name is Oliver and I'm a former alcoholic and addict now in recovery. The Recovery Cast is a podcast created by people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction for people in recovery from alcoholism and addiction. This podcast is meant as a support tool for those in recovery. Everyone who participates in the podcast is in an active recovery program. We are not affiliated with any one recovery methodology and will focus on a variety of different types of recovery, including 12-step programs such as Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and other things like Smart Recovery, Celebrate Recovery, Recovery Dharma, Cognitive Behavioural Therapy, and more. And a quick disclaimer, this podcast is intended to be informative. A podcast alone cannot support your sobriety and recovery, so we suggest it only as one component of a daily recovery routine. For more information on what recovery is, please go to www.rehab.melbourne. Alexis, how's it going?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm going really well today.
Yeah.
Talking about this reading that we have chosen for today's episode has made me really realise how I actually everything that's going on for me that, you know, perhaps I don't like or can't control, that none of it really matters and that I'm actually okay because I'm here and I'm fully present. So why don't you read out this daily reflections reading for our listeners so we can let them in on what's going on?
I would love to. So today's reading is December the 7th, Daily Reflections, and the topic is True Ambition. True ambition is not what we thought it was. True ambition is the deep desire to live usefully and walk humbly under the grace of God. 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, page 124 to 25. During my drinking years, my one and only concern was to have my fellow man think highly of me. My ambition in everything I did was to have the power to be at the top. My inner self kept telling me something else, but I couldn't accept it. I didn't even allow myself to realize that I wore a mask continually. Finally, when the mask came off and I cried out to the only God I could conceive, the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, my group and the 12 steps were there. I learned how to change resentments into acceptance, fear into hope, and anger into love. I have learned also, through loving without undue expectations, through sharing my concerns and caring for my fellow man, that each day can be joyous and fruitful. I begin and end my day with thanks to God, who has so generously shed his grace on me. Do you want to start us off, Ollie?
I want to throw it back to you and ask you what you get out of that reading. Does that make a lick of sense to you at all up there?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
No, I struggle with that one a little bit. I don't know. I don't really feel like I relate to it because I didn't, in my active addiction, I didn't go out of my way to like hide any of my use. And I didn't like really try to like keep anything from anyone. I started using because I was unable to deal with the things that I felt inside of me. So my inner self was never telling me that something was wrong and that I wasn't doing the right thing. Like I truly wholeheartedly believed that I would use until I die because it was the only thing that made me feel like I was alive. You know, and yeah, so I don't really know how to relate to this. My and like when I came into recovery, it was like I didn't really, you know, take a mask off and ask for help. Like it was a slow thawing out process and a lot of reluctance. And I'm still very much learning how to change resentments into acceptance and fear into hope. If I can say anything about hope, it's probably the one thing that terrifies me in this world. Like, it really terrifies me because I have had hope before in the past and it's been taken away from me, and, never deprive a man of hope, for it may be all that he has left. Like, it's very true. So I get scared when those sort of words come up. I'm like, don't want to feel that. Don't want to think that. Don't really trust it. But that's okay. That's just my interpretation.
Yeah.
Not this one.
I heard that and I sort of thought, what are they on about? I sort of thought maybe it was some really like old school AA, just kind of strange stuff, and it didn't really make a lot of sense to me until I spent a little bit of time reading it and sitting with it, and I got a lot of stuff from it, actually. We had a long chat before we started recording this, and I had a bit of a rant, so rant warning. If you're not up for a rant, then sit and listen to my rant, because it's not going to be a rant. It's going to be pretty interesting. We'll unpack this reading over the course of this episode, and we'll talk about it, and I'll ask you some questions because I want to hear your sort of, if I like break it down a little bit, I think you will get stuff out of it. It'll be interesting to talk about it,
I'm open.
So what they're talking about, this thing, true ambition. I think about true ambition. I think about it of sort of what true ambition is this person, his one and only concern was to have his fellow man think highly of him. So he was trying to hide his addiction. He was trying to maintain a status on the outside. And I think his ambition in everything he did was to have the power to be at the top. So he was concerned with changing the way he felt by trying to be the best, and having the best car, having the this and that, and trying to keep this mask of being in control. And he says his inner self kept telling him something else. So perhaps he felt like he was truly unhappy, and I can certainly relate to that in my active addiction. I spent my life, even before, I always felt like my inner self was telling me something, that I wasn't happy and I didn't fit in and something was wrong. And I guess for me, when the mask came off, what that actually means is not that restrictions are over and we don't have to wear masks anymore. It's more that, or that we reach that rock bottom and we break down that barrier of kind of the barriers that we put up in our lives of trying to seem okay, or trying to hold up this house of cards that is just going to fall down. Once the house of cards falls down, once we hit that rock bottom, we cry. What he says is he cried out to the only God he could conceive, the fellowship of AA. I think, that's his reality. But what I cried out to was, I cried out for help, and I said, I can't do this on my own anymore. And then once I did that, he says his group in the 12 steps were there. But for me, learning to live a life of recovery was there. And part of that was my 12-step group of choice. But also part of that was just being open and learning how to change those resentments into acceptance, fear into hope, and anger into love. He says he's learned also through loving without undue expectations, through sharing his concerns and caring for others, that each day can be joyous and fruitful. So what he's talking about there, I think, is about living a spiritual program. And, this stuff does mention God in it. And great, because my conception of what God is and what all this means is really not sort of the typical one. What I was talking about with you before we started recording, and he also, he says he begins and ends his day with thanks to God who has so generously shed his grace on him. So there's a lot of stuff there. It's really difficult to sort of get your head around. But I think true ambition is what is really important. the true ambition should be, and what is it all about? What is life all about? Once we break down those masks of trying to be the best and have the best and achieve what we want and do these material things in our life, what is really important? What's true? What's real above all that stuff? And what I think is what my true ambition is actually just being able to sit with myself, of being able to be fully, truly present and aware of everything around me and experience the world and life in the way that it really is, which is just profoundly beautiful and amazing. I have had this spiritual awakening that they're talking about, and the more I look at these readings, the more I realize that I have what he's talking about in terms of God's grace. I mean, that's such an abstract concept. It's so strange. But what my conception of God's grace is you know that, Alexis, you know that I'm really into Eckhart Tolle, and I'm really into that sort of mindfulness and spirituality kind of thing. God's grace is I use the analogy of what the Buddha did with the people he was teaching. He held up a flower and got all of his disciples to sit around him and look at the flower. And he said, just look at the flower. And he held it up for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours. And he saw one of his disciples just started smiling. And that's when he knew that disciple had achieved enlightenment, because we're living in this life and we can sit and look at a flower and be like, okay, it's just a flower. But what we're really missing out on is what that true ambition is, to be able to sit and be fully present in the present moment and have that full level of awareness. And once this disciple looked at the flower and smiled, he realized he was just completely in the moment and realized that is literally all there is, and you might as well enjoy it, and you might as well be fully present and aware of the entire massive level of just things that are going on, the way you feel, the sounds, the sights, the smells, the sensory experience of what we experience when we are alive is incredible. And even just looking at something as simple as a flower is just the most profoundly beautiful thing. And my question is for you, Alexis, like, if there's not that, then what is there that we can experience? What is life all about? Is it about having that car? Is it about having that partner? Is it about getting that job? Is it about those external things and that mask that he's talking about? And the answer to that, I think, is no, that's not what being alive is about. I think for me, I spent so long trying to change the way I felt by putting substances into my system. I thought that was the solution, but what really is the solution is just to be able to sit and experience life without any kind of chemical buffer or any kind of, concept of past or future. It's just literally sitting and being, Does that, I think I've lost you at this stage. Have I?
It's not that you've lost me. Like, I'm listening. I haven't reached that sort of part of my recovery. I'm still, I'm still learning how to just cope inside of my own body. I'm not even thinking about how to cope inside the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, it's not about the rest of the world. I don't think it's literally just about being and sitting and experiencing.
Yeah,
you're doing it right now. It's just that you have to sit and see it, and that's where meditation helps for me. But before we go to the break, I just want to ask, how do you think? I use Nelson Mandela as an example of you said he was in prison for 17 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I
something
read 17
like that.
years.
How do you think he survived that, and how do you think he came out and stopped carrying those resentments? How do you think he turned that? What do they talk about? Turning fear into hope, anger into love, and resentments into acceptance. That's how he did it. Is he just sat there and experienced his reality and felt all of it, and was there in the present moment?
Well, yeah, I can relate to that because like I have gone like I've spent time incarcerated, and when I was coming around to doing my step 4, my sponsor was surprised that I didn't put the police or the prison where I spent my where I served my sentence down on my resentments list. But what was there to resent? I had done the wrong thing, and I had served I paid my dues, and I wasn't angry at anyone because I had accepted it for what it was. I don't know if that's similar, but
No, I think
I wasn't angry at the people that had put me inside because I kind of knew that I was meant to, my behavior was leading me there.
well,
I don't know if that's on topic.
No, I think that's
I can relate.
That's true. Is that that happened in the past, and that that is not happening now. So the things that I've done in the past, they are not happening now. And the feelings that I had in the past are not happening now. What is happening now? I'm sitting in my studio.
I struggle with that concept. I really do. If I can be honest there. I really struggle with that. I feel like I'm still holding on to a lot of emotions from the past, and that's where therapy helps me.
Yeah.
That's where therapy really helps me, because I've done the step work, I've done my resentments list and everything like that. And there's still things that will just take a long time to heal and shift.
Well, I think that recovery is a journey, and
healing isn't linear.
Yeah, it's not linear, and as long as you just keep doing that and keep pursuing this recovery and trying your best, then it will continue to provide you with what you need. We're going to go to a break, and I'm just going to try and help our listeners understand what on earth it is that I'm trying to get at here.
You're listening to the Recovery Cast by Hills and Rangers Private. Now playing daily on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. For more shows, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.
All right, you're back on the Recovery Cast with Oliver and Alexis, your hosts, and I'm getting into that really abstract spirituality stuff that I think sometimes people who are just trying to stay in recovery one day at a time, this is the advanced stuff. I don't know. Maybe
it is.
I mean, they say that the 12-step programs are a spiritual program. It's not religious, and what does that even mean, spiritual, this is my conception of what that actually means. And there are lots of people who maybe have that same grasp. I think, the people like the Buddha and Eckhart Tolle and just spiritual teachers, some of them have that understanding. And you know what? I actually think that, if there was somebody called Jesus 2,000 years ago, I think he probably was an enlightened and spiritual person to the point where people wrote about him and created this entire religion, And, what does that actually mean? I'm going to try to get our listeners right now to try and get on that sort of plane of experience that I'm trying to get at here. So if you're listening to this, some people probably put this on when they're doing stuff, but I'd like you to try and stop doing what you're doing and sit down. I mean, if you're driving, you can't, so don't just take your hands off the wheel. But if it's appropriate, sit and just sit and feel what you're feeling and notice everything that's going on. There will be sounds around you. There will be a temperature in the room that you're in. If you're outside, there might be a breeze. There might be smells of if you're outside or inside, even just really subtle smells. Like if you're in a carpeted room, there can be that carpet smell. There can be a dusty smell. There can be the feeling of the clothes on your skin. There can be the feeling of any aches or pains you might have, or the feeling of your heart beating, or the sound of the blood rushing in your ears, and literally just stop thinking and observe it. and hear the sound of this like Albrecht Lebroi track with Sleep D going on in the background. It's all happening right now, and we're here and we're in the present moment. And that's what the Buddha's holding up, that flower. He's just saying, look at the flower. That's all you get. And what this true ambition is, I mean, I don't know if you felt that, maybe it's really hard to get into that state. I found that I was so broken when I got into recovery that I was actually like, it was almost like a bomb had gone off in my life and blasted everything away, and that all I had was that. And that's what I quickly found was what my true ambition is. And that's what the topic of this reading is, true ambition. My true ambition is to stay in the present moment and be completely aware. And what they're talking about of what God's grace is, that strange, abstract thing, that's what it is for me. That's God's grace of me when I'm doing everything that I do, whether I'm sitting in a queue or I'm in line at a cafe or I'm doing some work that I don't want to do, or whether I'm having I had a root canal at the dentist the other day and I'm sitting in the chair and I'm just like, yep, and I'm feeling it and experiencing it, and it stops becoming bad or good. It just is, and that's the present moment. That's God's grace. I've lost you, Alexis. I think you've done 1% of the talking in this episode. And
I'm so sorry, but like, you're making a lot of sense.
Am I?
I'm like here for
I'm
here for it. Like, yeah, I was like right deep in that. I was like fully like, visualizing myself on the dentist chair being in that moment right then. So you're great. You're great. I just don't really have anything to add to this conversation, unfortunately.
Well,
Sorry, listeners.
No, I think that's really important, is that
Still working on this part of my recovery.
You may feel like it needs work. You may feel like you're not there yet, but I can tell you now that everybody who's listening and everybody in the world it's all right here around you. You literally have to just flick that switch, because if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it, and what's it going to take? For me, I think it's literally there, and there's this disconnect between, it's sort of like a kind of meditation in a way, because for me, when I try and meditate, a lot of the time my mind comes and pops into it. But if I'm doing it right, I can just sit in that moment and be in this so-called, start quotation, God's grace, end quotation. And that's the place where I can change resentments into acceptance, because I'm not sitting with my mind. It's acceptance of, I could resent the dentist for drilling into my tooth, or I could turn fear into hope of that, there's so many things to be afraid of in the world, but when we get to that state, then hope becomes possible, and anger turns into love as well. And that's what they're talking about, is when you're in that place, you can love without undue expectations. You can share your concerns and care for other people around you. And that's when I'm truly, I truly realize that every day is joyous and fruitful, that it can be joyous and fruitful, even if it's just the most mundane day, the same as any other, of going to work or sitting in the dentist chair. Because at the end of the day, what else is life all about? What is there? Is there something I'm waiting for? Is it when I get that paycheck at the end of the fortnight and I can go and, buy something for my car or buy that outfit online? Is that what life's all about? Because if it is, I want a refund. That is so not what life is all about for me. If it's not even about going on that holiday at the end of the year, like, please. Why would I work for 11 months of the year so that I can enjoy a holiday for 1 month of the year? That's not fair, and that's not actually what it's about for me. That might be that somebody's ambition is, but it certainly isn't mine, because I can sit in this studio on this day where it's kind of muggy and raining a little bit and I've got to work all day. I can sit here and I can be like, yep, and I'm literally having the best time of my life right now. And you know what? I haven't been feeling that for a long time. Sometimes I'm not in tune with you know, this is what my higher power is, guys. You know, I'm sharing my higher power with you, and I hope you understand it. If you don't, then, you know, keep listening and keep trying to stay in your recovery. My challenge for today, let's segue into this challenge. I want to get like a musical thing of like the challenge, so that I can press the button so that we can hear that.
Yes, we need that.
All right, I'm gonna do that. Yeah, you know, maybe I've got a guitar here. I can do it.
A little segue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The challenge. You know, let's do that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm here every day. So yeah, you know, the challenge is to sit with what is and what's real, and work out what your true ambition is. You know, sit with it. Just be and exist, and know that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. There is no ambition. There's nothing. There just is. Just be.
I'm actually going to take you up on that challenge today as well.
Just do it right now.
Let's recording, yeah.
Oh, let's do it right now. 5 seconds.
Okay.
Ready?
All
Go.
right. Sick.
Yeah. I like that. So anyway, yeah, I think let's call it right there. Thank you, Alexis, and thank you for putting up with my obscure spiritual mumbo jumbo today.
I got a lot out of it, Ollie. Thank you so much.
No worries. Yeah, that's another episode of the Recovery Cast, proudly brought to you by Hills and Ranges Private. If you have any questions, if you didn't understand that and you want to talk about it, then jump on www.rehab.melbourne. And until then, look, I just wish you the best in your recovery and finding that path in your life, and think about what's really important. Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Recovery Cast. For more, visit us at www.rehab.melbourne.